Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between Norsca, who's going to be led by Throg the Troll King, and the Vampire Counts, who are going to be led by Heinrich Kemmler. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So here on the front line, we're going to be trying something a little bit different. So typically when I do play against Vampire Counts, I like to use Marauder Champions with these swords and shields, or I believe they're actually using axes. But the axes and shields because number one, most Vampire Counts players in my experience do bring the standard Graveguard in the front line, who are very good against lightly armored infantry. They have a relatively high melee defense, they have good armor, they have a bonus versus infantry. So they'll do pretty well against Berserkers, not so much against Champions. Granted, Berserkers are pretty good in sustained combat, and Vampire Counts will often bring a bunch of chaff, so skeletons, zombies, and stuff like that. So it's nice to have the Berserkers in the front line to kind of chop through those guys. And even against Graveguard, I wonder how that would actually go. Maybe we'll do like a unit test after this video or in a separate one. But I'm curious how Berserkers would perform against some armored infantry because, again, they do have 57 weapon strength, a nice bonus versus infantry, relatively low AP, but they do get this Berserk. So I feel like in a very long, grindy battle, they might do pretty well against Graveguard. Hard to say, but I still think it is going to favor the armor of the Graveguard here. But regardless, front line of the Berserkers here, and to get our armor piercing. So like I said, typically I go with the Marauder Champions, not the armor piercing variant, and then I get Famir for the armor piercing, but here we're going to be trying to use the Mammoth. So we do have the Soul Crusher. Now this guy can definitely, if he's able to just kind of stomp the yard and run unimpeded over Graveguard, he can stomp them out so hard. But again, Mammoth's definitely pretty vulnerable to some of these anti-large tools over here. So we do have some Blood Knights for my opponent. Looks like he has the Dire Pack as well, but there's no Terror Geist. So there's not going to be like free damage on this thing. Terror Geist can like do breath attacks, they can charge in, they can pull back through your infantry. It's definitely very tough. And just in case he does have a bunch of Blood Knights or Terror Geists or things like that, we do have the Famir Warriors with great weapons. I usually like to have 2 or 3, but again, we're going to be trying a Mammoth-centric build. We do also have Throg. We have a Firecaster here, the Famir Balefiend with the Burning Skull, Flaming Sword, all that kind of good stuff. 2 Marauder Hunters with Javelins here, which are going to be focusing down the Mortis Engine. We got Spears, and Marauders on protection duty. That's pretty much it. Excuse me. Ooh, man, almost lost my voice here. That's pretty much it for now. So for my opponent's force, he does have the Dire Pack, who's going to be creeping in the shadows, probably trying to get into the cookie jar. Blood Knights, and Blood Knights, which is going to be a lot of shock pressure on my front line. And that's why I typically like to have like 3 Famir or 2 Famir with great weapons, so you can kind of intercept them. But it's going to spread me a little bit thin for sure. In the front here, he does have Graveguard. It looks like he has a Corpse Guard. I was about to say a blow drone, but I've been playing too much 40k. A Mortis Engine, and on top of that, he does have Heinrich Kemmler with all his evil cackling abilities. Zombies in the front line, Königstein Stalkers for poison, definitely very solid, and you can see their stats are quite juicy from that Corpse Guard. So guys, let's get the show on the road. So he's going to be doing a Blood Knight charge. I just came over the hill. I didn't have much time to react because I couldn't see them until the last second. So these Blood Knights get a good and tasty charge. Nothing quite as cool as seeing a Blood Knight charge. I think they're one of the coolest cab units in the game. So they charge in there. He does some pretty good work. I do charge the Soul Crusher forward as well to, and does have enough mass to shut down the Blood Knight, so I kind of was able to fend them off with that. I did pop the Enrage, just in case I did take the damage. Now, even if he doesn't attack here, I'm able to kind of at least force them back, so I don't take too much. But he also got a downhill charge because of the nature of this map, so I probably should have waited back maybe, like on the low ground, and just forced my opponent up. I don't know how I would have done that, but anyways, right here, the other Blood Knights do get a bit of a limp charge. They kind of got interrupted there before they could. Throg is going to be pacing forward, and you know what? It's not going bad here. The Blood Knights are being attacked by the Famir, so I did do a counter charge. Just lost a couple Blood Knights, but certainly did a ton of damage against my Berserker. So it's actually evening out a little bit in terms of cost. So my other Berserkers have gotten into the chaff units. This is where they're really going to shine. Chopping up zombies, and the Graveguard, it looks like, are being kept in reserve. Now the big Papa Mammoth is going to be coming in. He's going to be hitting some of the Graveguard as well as some of the Blood Knights on his entry here. And the Mortis Engine, in the meantime, has scooted up. In the back, there's some harass going on, so he did squeak the Dire Pack in there. Did a little bit of damage to Javelins, but I was able to fall back past my Spearmen. And I'm pretty well protected, so I was able to secure my back line. I dealt with these Hounds, and now my Javelins are going to be free to throw. So the Elephant being attacked by some of the Blood Knights in the back here, but I am kind of falling back on top of my Berserkers. The Berserkers, though not as resilient as the Marauder Champions, definitely taking quite a bit of damage. Flaming Sword of Ruin has gone down as well. There's going to be a pretty good and tasty Burning Skull here. Now, Burning Skull doesn't do too much against armor. I think Shadows, I'm starting to think that Shadows might be better in this matchup, even though there are Vampires that are weak to fire, but a Pendulum right there would have been massively devastating. So right here, I do a ton of work against this Mortis Engine. I'm able to put it down in a matter of seconds with Throg, as well as that Javelin Overwatch fire. And the Javelins are just so good against Mortis Engine. So there it goes, it blows up. Definitely a pretty good early grab for me. Berserkers here doing well against the Königstein Stalkers. The Famir with great weapons were able to kind of defend that flank, but I think he pulled back with his Blood Knights, or maybe I just killed him outright. He did summon some zombies in the back as well, keeping a lot of troops in reserve here. Blood Knights charging back in. But the main issue with the battle so far is this is a huge loss right here. So I had Berserkers fighting with my Famir Balefiend with Shadows, and the Berserkers actually pretty much just got killed and driven off. So that left the Famir Balefiend by myself, and I made a huge mistake. I stopped paying attention to him and actually let him get surrounded. And my opponent did summon Krell, who's an absolute thug, and you can see that Krell is going to start spanking the Famir Balefiend, who is a large target. So Krell's bonus versus large is able to shine there. Balance bar is pretty even though. I would say it's like pretty much dead center here in the middle. I do have to pull my spears up because the berserkers have pretty much lost all of their respective battles. The Soul Crusher here doing a pretty good job actually. He's up to only 16 kills, but he's doing some decent HP damage to the Tithe and some of these other Graveguard as well as some Blood Knights. So quite happy with his performance so far. I think the thing that's been a little bit lackluster in my forces has been the Berserkers in the front line. But regardless, Famir are holding. Berserkers here are holding. They're probably at probably the second or third tier of their Berserk, which is going to be pretty helpful. But Krell is holding it down right here. He does have the Van Hell's Dance Kebab, and he's doing a pretty good job chopping up the Famir with great weapons. But they are holding. Blood Knights are taking quite a bit of damage, so he has lost one full group of Blood Knights outright. That was disastrous. I had so much Winds of Magic, and he was able to get my Famir Balefiend with his Blood Knights, as well as that Focus Fire from everything else in Krell. So, right now I do have to do a bit of a fallback, so Throg's going to be falling back looking for another target here. The Mammoth is taking a bit of damage from Blood Knights, and Krell's coming in. We do not want Krell hitting the Mammoth. He hits very, very hard, but I still have 7,600 HP, so not the end of the world. So now Marauders are having to push in. Marauders are pretty terrible against vampire counts, but they are good in the back line at, like, you know, clearing out chaff. They're just like a cheap anti-zombie unit, so that's what I was using them for. My Javelins are still throwing in. We're just throwing spears over here at the Blood Knights, trying to work down his anti-large tool so the Mammoth can run sort of free. Throg does come over here and pop the fight or die, so he's going to be able to hopefully kill some Blood Knights, but again, Blood Knights are going to do huge damage right back to him, so it is a very bloody trade here, and hopefully it'll go well. The Mammoth is coming over to help. I knew Throg needed some support here, and here comes the Mammoth getting a huge attack on those Blood Knights. That was a very, very good situation. Spears are pushing up as well. Marauder Hunter Javelins are just firing in, and it looks like his Blood Knights are going to be put in the can pretty quick. He does have another group though, and he still has a ton of Graveguard, Connection Shocker, Sternsman at 89 models. Krell's in pretty good shape as well. So, Monsters fight's going okay. I'm slowly clearing out all the Blood Knights. Yes, the bouncing power is in his favor, but if I'm able to clean out the Blood Knights, I feel like it's going to be really hard for him to kill the Mammoth here. And now all my auxiliary troops, the Spearmen and my Javelins, are actually about to run out of ammo. So, what's cool about them is they're not bad in melee. I mean, they do have, what, 28 weapon strength and 26 melee attack. That's really not that bad. Marauder Spears are holding up the flank, just trying to keep all these guys in position while my Mammoth and Throg work their way through the Blood Knights. There still is a pretty big pack here. It looks like there's 25 models. And wherever I go, Krell is just following me. So since we last looked, the Mammoth has taken about 2,000 damage, give or take, and Krell's been very responsible for a lot of that. So Krell very, very good in this matchup right now. He's actually been doing heavy lifting. I would love to see the stats on like how much damage he has actually done to the Soul Crusher. But the Soul Crusher is still crushing souls. I mean, I guess there's no souls to be crushed. These are mostly like undead, so maybe that's why he doesn't have as many kills as he usually does. But right now I'm just kind of working around, having Throg clip the wings. My opponent's formation was really bunched up in the spears and everything, so I'm trying to have the moves and only send in the Mammoth when I have infantry support. So the Hunters are going to be charging in, the Mammoth is going to be following them. They're just trying to regroup myself, and oh man, that guy doesn't have a head. I wonder if he just like came that way or if his head got cut off and he's just kind of like standing there. But the Corpse Guard's still alive, which is pretty tough for me because it's making all my opponent's troops that much stronger. Even his like low tier stuff is pretty powerful. Javelins, of course, should be able to work through quite a few zombies. And Throg just falls back. He gets a little bit of throw up here, does chip some of those Graveguard. Not the best value, but nonetheless, it looked really cool. And Krell's just on the hunt. Wherever he goes, I'm just, you know, trying to run away and reset myself. But the problem is like, all my supporting units are just being worn down. So the Marauder Hunter's having to fight in melee. Throg's coming in with the Steel Chair, hopefully able to crack some of these Blood Knights. And doing a pretty good job. I mean, the Blood Knights are almost out of the picture. 341 HP. Throg's been doing a great job all game. And yeah, it's quite a cockfight. Heinrich Kemmler here coming in with the Undeath Resurgent, giving all of his troops leadership and melee defense. This is a pretty scary blob. I mean, even though the Mammoth is basically a counter to all of these, like, it's just, I'm just getting chipped away, and the Mammoths don't have the best leadership as it pertains to like other monstrous units and things like that. These Marauder Hunters with Javelins working through zombies and skeleton warriors, which have been summoned by Heinrich. And at this point, Throg's kind of in the pocket. He's going to be fighting against Krell. I probably should have just ran, and I mean, if you really wanted to be degenerate, you could just run from Krell and let him, you know, de-summon himself. But I don't think I could afford to do that because all my other units would just be like really beat up. Plus, I wouldn't want to do it anyways. So Marauder Hunters here do have 30 models. The Famir with Balefiends actually got terrified and ran off. So Krell does cause terror. He's able to terrify me. I do pop in rage with my Mammoth, and that gives him a huge, huge defensive boost here. But yeah, he's at 8 leadership. He's wavering. Krell's getting in there, and I do pull in Throg, and Throg is actually able to karate chop Krell a little bit. Don't they fight in lore or have some sort of association with one another? I can't really remember, but anyways, Krell here has 180 HP. He gets Sparta kicked by Throg, and Throg's able to take him out for the most part. He's definitely going to be disappearing here in a moment. But alas, most of my forces have crumbled. The Soul Crusher crushed a fair amount of souls, about 80 souls, although maybe only a couple since Vampire Counts units are just mindless, essentially, like the Graveguard and things like that, I think. And Throg's actually broken as well, so well played by my opponent. It was definitely a fun game. I think that it really came down to like 1 or 2 moments. Firstly, he had some really good charges in the beginning with his Blood Knights. They were solid. I mean, he got a ton of damage on the Berserkers. But number 2 was letting my Famir Balefiend with fire get caught out. Like, I didn't notice that the berserkers that were with him broke. And when that happened, he just kind of got surrounded because he had better leadership and better sustainability. So he kept fighting and just got surrounded. I think that's ultimately what cost me the game, because having that fire throughout the game would have been huge, right? And another powerful hero to help fight off Krell and units like that, you know, fighting with the Mammoth, buffing it with Flaming Sword, stuff like that would have been pretty huge. But, I mean, the build did work for sure. The Marauder Hunters with Javelins killed the Mortis Engine. The Mammoth did pretty good HP damage against, like, the blobs of infantry. But I really think, I mean, the Berserkers just underperformed. So I think the Soul Crusher does have a bit of a niche here. Although, if he did go double Terrorgeist, I don't know how I would have dealt with him. I mean, I guess the Femir Balefiends, or the Femir Warriors with Great Weapons plus Throg probably could fend them off. Yeah, I think you could. You have Javelins as well. And you can... I was kind of expecting the double Terrorgeist, because then I would have popped in Rage with Soul Crusher and then used Javelins and Throg. So I think it would probably be okay there. So my number one criticism of this build is probably the Brute of the Hound. So we'll go ahead and like switch up this build a little bit and maybe fine tune it. And I think it could be something that could be pretty functional and actually have a Mammoth in a good situation. But as far as my opponent's build, I thought it was really good. Heinrich Kemmler was awesome. He had some chaff in the front. Graveguard will beat any Norscan infantry except the Marauders, the Marauder champions. And the Blood Knights were cool. He did really good with them. Even though they got killed relatively quick, they still did a ton of shock damage. They brought down the Mammoth. They just did a ton of work. And yeah, it was quite a bit of fun. So let's go ahead and take a look. But firstly, very well played to my opponent, Tank 3487. Look forward to running into you again on ladder. Guys, now we're going to jump over and fine-tune this build a little bit. So let's jump over here. And we're gonna do it to it. So it was actually a build that I had preloaded because I wanted to experiment with the Mammoth a little bit. So this is more, yeah. So I think it was this one here. Yes. So probably I would cut the Berserkers. They just like they didn't give me enough like of a backbone. You could even go with the champions. I mean, you could also go with the regular ones, but let's just for now like go with them. And although these guys, the melee defense is so much higher. The melee defense on these guys is 30. If they're going to bring like Graveguard and stuff like that, I mean, these guys will even hold. I mean, at least they have armor, right? That's what you're really kind of punching for. So something like this, I think, would just be exponentially better. I mean, you do lose one Berserker because of the cost, but I mean, you could even go with the Swords and Shields if you really want to, because the Soul Crusher is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting anyway. So if you want to go for like the long game, you can switch in these Marauder champions, and that's almost enough to get a little something something. So where can we cut some here? I mean, the Vomit's okay. How much does that actually cost? Oh yeah, we can cut that. The Vomit is so like... Yeah, the Firecaster isn't bad. Burning Skull, you know, all this Flaming Sword of Ruin definitely synergizes pretty well with all these troops, but you can switch it with the Shadowcaster if you want. Either way is pretty good. You could use Buna and Death, but I really do think Shadows would have been better against the Graveguard blob. But yeah, you can spend the money however you like. You could get the Great Weapons. It's just, I think something like this would be a lot stronger with the Mammoth. So very well played again to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Norscan showdown, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.